While people are dying, people's homes are getting flooded, people are losing their livelihoods, their properties, students are not able to go to school. These politicians, as well as the contractors of these public works projects, they're making billions of pesos in kickbacks.
Kung paano kayo ninakawan nitong mga ito, I want to hold these people accountable.
It appears that this is systematic corruption in the culture of the government, and it's just been more brazen. I'm Barnaby, a correspondent based in Manila, and between us, as someone born and raised in the Philippines, this country has witnessed 2 mass uprisings over corruption, and I fear they won't be the last. There were several protests all throughout the country. A lot of the people that we spoke with were actually at protests in 1986 and then in 2001. So those 2 mass uprisings ousted 2 corrupt leaders. And they told us nothing has changed. And so they're even angrier right now because everything that they've done in the past have been for nothing. All this began back in July when there was widespread flooding in large parts of the country. The rains have been incessant, they have been relentless. Philippine President Ferdinand Jr. delivered his State of the Nation address. And in that speech, he highlighted these flood control projects, which he hinted might be substandard and might be corruption-ridden. He called a press conference, and I was in that press conference actually. And you know, back then I didn't know how big this story was going to be, but it snowballed from there. So from there, he said that he would form an independent commission to look into these flood control projects. There were separate inquiries at the House and at the Senate, and these were both public spectacle. They went on for 7, 8, 9, 10 hours even.
Sometimes you have to bend the law.
The problem was that politicians were allegedly involved in these anomalous flood control projects. So basically, they were investigating themselves. But the revelations were shocking, to say the least. Witnesses were saying they were delivering luggage full of cash to these lawmakers.
That's standard practice in our office.
It's also the ostentatious display of their wealth. You know, the lack of empathy and just the callousness of all of it. You have these children of politicians as well as children of these public works contractors flaunting their extravagance on social media.
759,000. Maria.
3 people have died here amid these flood waters. We went to the province of Bulacan, and this province is one of the most flood-prone provinces in all of the Philippines. And in Bulacan, there are numerous flood control projects. And some of the neighborhoods there were actually using boats to get around because their houses were flooded way above the average person's height. For them, you know, it's unconscionable because they're living this reality for maybe half the year, waiting in floodwater. And to find out that money meant to ease their suffering is being given away in kickbacks to politicians. You know, they're seething with anger. People affected by these floods, it's not just the poor segment of Philippine society, it's everybody here. I was born here in Manila and I grew up in Manila, and now I live in this area where just a little rain, we see rising floodwaters. There are still protests happening inside university campuses every week until they see systemic change. People are watching these investigations. They want to see costs for these infrastructure projects down to the last detail. They also want to see the finances of these politicians. They don't want a change in leadership, and that's the difference this time. Their demand is for everyone involved in this corruption scheme to be put behind bars. If they don't see them prosecuted, then there could be more violent protests.